There was a moment in time when your body silently became a key used for authentication and profit. Not just your ID, not just your password, and not just your security questions. You. Your eyes get you through airports, your fingerprints unlock your phone, your voice authorizes your payments, and for some, your face might even be the key used to unlock the front door of your home. While biometrics have slipped into nearly every part of our society, do you really remember when this actually happened? Biometrics didn't arrive with a loud announcement. They just quietly slipped their way into each of our lives by utilizing one convenience at a time. At one point, our identities were something we all desperately tried to protect. Now, they are something companies collect so that they can be stored, analyzed, and used to drive revenue. This is the business of biometrics, and in this video, we will be breaking down exactly how this technology was able to infiltrate our society. While it may feel like biometric technology suddenly exploded onto the scene in the 2010s, the truth is that it's been around for more than a century, most notably with fingerprinting emerging back in the 1880s. While the use of fingerprinting may have been revolutionary for identifying criminals, it wasn't until the 1960s that biometrics really started to take off behind the scenes. This was when biometrics moved from strictly forensics into the world of technology when computer scientists began experimenting with facial recognition methods. This progression would continue on throughout the rest of the 1900s as biometrics continued to evolve and voice and iris recognition technologies had now begun to take off. But while during this time, biometrics were progressing at a rapid pace, it was all happening in the shadows as this technology was nowhere near mainstream and was mostly being used in labs and by government agencies, with an example of this being when the FBI began funding facial recognition and fingerprint projects in 1969, as it had become a massively valuable tool in the world of law enforcement. This all started to change in the 2000s when biometrics suddenly started going more mainstream. Once computing power began to increase and this type of technology started to become cheaper to produce, biometrics slowly started to seep into everyday life, with the turning point being in 2013 when Apple first introduced the fingerprint scanner that could be used to unlock your iPhone. From here, biometrics continued to evolve, to where your voice can now be used to verify payments and your eyes can even be used to get you through borders. But in order for all of this to happen, biometrics had to make sense from a financial standpoint. And next, we'll be looking at exactly how much sense they actually made. Biometrics didn't just suddenly become mainstream because technology had now improved. They spread because the financial incentives became impossible to ignore. Once this technology was introduced, businesses quickly realized our identities could be turned into products, and these products would be an easy sell to the public for a multitude of reasons such as speed, convenience, and security. In a world that's constantly striving to find ways to move at a faster pace, biometrics play perfectly into this. Biometric systems can verify a person's identity in instants, where traditionally, identity checks may have been slow and drawn out as multiple forms of ID were manually checked and tedious security questions were asked. And that's where consumer convenience comes into play, because with biometrics, not only are consumers now able to get through verification checks quicker, but it's also much easier for them. Instead of having to answer annoying questions and find multiple forms of ID in their pockets, they're able to just have their eyes scanned. And instead of having to type in a long passcode just to unlock their phone, now all they have to do is touch it. Any product that makes less work for the consumer is likely to result in massive amounts of revenue. And not only are biometrics quicker and more convenient than traditional verification methods, they're able to do this without sacrificing security. In fact, they enhance it. We all know the feeling of having your ID checked by a person in just a few seconds and realizing they didn't care at all because they hardly even looked at it and were just trying to speed up the process. Not that we ever argued about this, as we all just want to move along as well, but in the back of our minds, we all knew the security process was a joke and mostly performative. Biometrics changed all of this as they were able to provide even better security as they removed the potential for human error and were able to use your body to prove that you were you. Airports represent this perfectly as travelers are now able to get in line until they are able to quickly get their face scanned and move along quickly without any doubts that anyone there is who they say they are. In a previous video, I covered how wait times can lead to millions in losses. Well, fortunately for businesses, biometrics can really help them with this problem because every time a long password that's likely to be forgotten is replaced, or physical badges no longer need to be created. Processes become faster, and wait times are reduced, which ultimately leads to more revenue. While all of the things I covered are the reasons biometrics make sense economically, the biggest financial incentive is, you guessed it, data. This data helps companies confirm exactly who you are, and then personalize what you see so they can target you with marketing for specific products. But to understand why the biometrics industry is growing at such an accelerated pace, you have to understand the technology behind it, and the companies that control it. While the financial incentives are what pushed biometrics to the forefront of society so quickly, at the end of the day this wouldn't have been possible without the technology behind it. At their core, the idea behind biometrics is simple. Your body is used as a form of authentication, the same thing your password, PIN, authentication apps, and security codes sent to your email or phone are all used for. While the idea behind biometrics is simple, the way they work is a bit more complex. Essentially, these technologies capture a pattern that is unique to your body, they convert the pattern into data, and then compare that data to a previously stored pattern in order to confirm your identity. Biometric systems combine the use of hardware and software components in order to achieve this. These systems use sensors in order to capture a person's physical pattern, and then utilize algorithms to analyze the pattern and compare it against a template for this pattern that's encrypted and stored in a database. But the technology itself is only half the story, because behind all of this, there are companies building, managing, and controlling these systems. Some companies build sensors and the algorithms for these systems. Some are utilized to store and verify data, while others are simply using and implementing these systems in modern society. But collectively, they form the backbone of the biometrics industry and are shaping how identity and authentication work all over the world. While biometric technology has been adopted all over the world, the speed different parts of the world are moving at with this technology is very different. Throughout Asia, biometrics are unsurprisingly being implemented at a massive scale. In many countries across the region, biometrics are being utilized for things like travel, paying for groceries, or even checking into your hotel. Throughout Asia, the infrastructure has become widespread, and it's something people have largely accepted as a normal part of their everyday lives. Asia is moving full speed ahead with the implementation of these systems. However, in Europe, the exact opposite is true. While biometrics are still used on a large scale, countries in this region are far more cautious. Throughout Europe, much stricter policies have been put in place on the usage of biometrics. If companies want to use biometrics and the data associated with them, they must justify it and face much stricter regulations. In North America, the approach to these systems is much more fragmented. In America, the biometrics industry is growing much more from corporations pushing this technology than from the government. Laws regulating this technology also vary much more by state or province, rather than as many laws being put in place by the federal government. All three of these regions have very different philosophies on how biometrics should be implemented in society, but are all expanding its usage regardless. And as biometrics continue to expand, so does the pushback from a large segment of the population, because people aren't comfortable with data as important as their own biology being stored in a database controlled by large corporations and the government. Especially when people begin to question how accurate these systems actually are and how they could potentially be misused. And one of the largest concerns is that once biometric data is collected, it can't be changed the way you could just reset a password. As all of these concerns make their way to the front of the minds of the public, pushback against this technology continues to grow. And people should be paying attention and joining the conversations around biometrics, as they are no longer just a convenience or a cool new way to unlock your phone. They are becoming a massive infrastructure that will determine how people are identified around the world for everything they do, from traveling to getting paid. And the world is still deciding how this technology should be used as we progress towards the future. While it may have felt like it to many of us, biometrics didn't just appear overnight. They were silently developed by government agencies and computer scientists for over a century, and then were slowly released to the public one convenient feature at a time, until they became a normal and accepted part of everyday life. This was able to happen because of a combination of the financial incentives surrounding biometrics, the technology behind them, and the companies controlling them. And as biometrics become more woven into our society than ever before on a global scale, the entire world is now being forced into conversations around the ethics of this technology, how it should be regulated, and who should be controlling it. Some regions of the world, like Asia, are implementing biometrics at a breakneck speed, while others, like Europe, are moving more cautiously. The important thing to note is that they are still moving, and that's why conversations around biometrics are important, because they are now more than just a fast way to move through a security line or a quick way to unlock your phone. They are becoming an infrastructure that will determine how identity and authentication are handled for the entirety of the human race. And as we move forward, it's not a matter of if biometrics will be used in the future, it's a matter of in what capacity and how will they be managed, who will control them, and what safeguards will be put in place to protect people in society, both collectively and individually, from the dangers posed by biometric systems if they aren't implemented properly. Because biometrics aren't just a matter of technology, but also of biology. And the decisions that are made today regarding biometrics will shape how the entirety of society operates and what identity means for generations to come. This was the Visionary Analyst. If you enjoyed this video, please consider helping the channel grow by subscribing, dropping a like on the video, and following my social media accounts linked in the description below. And stay tuned for the next video, where we will be investigating a darker side of business, the business of addiction.